Hello and welcome to our second Protective Factors webinar. The title of our session today is In Their Corner, Championing the Mental Health of Your Young People. I am Dr. Gina Newsom-Duncan, the lead mental health expert with the Steve Fund and your facilitator for this session, and really looking forward to what we are going to be talking about today. For those of you who are not familiar with the Steve Fund, the Steve Fund promotes the mental health and emotional well-being of all young people, particularly those from underserved and under-resourced communities, by equipping them, their families, educators, and mental health professionals with the knowledge, skills, and community support needed to achieve their full potential. Our vision is that every young person is fully supported by peers, families, communities, and institutional cultures that value and contribute to their mental health and emotional well-being. For young people from underserved and under-resourced backgrounds, we aim to protect their mental well-being, equip them with practical tools for resilience, and promote their lifelong success. Our goal is to support them in reaching a healthy, productive adulthood, enabling thriving in academic, personal, and career pursuits that benefit their family, community, and society. Again, I am Dr. Gina Newsom-Duncan and have the privilege of being your facilitator for this session and for the Protective Factors webinar series. I am a psychiatrist and psychotherapist in private practice in Charlotte, North Carolina, a proud HBCU graduate of Hampton University. I completed my MD degree at UNC School of Medicine in Chapel Hill and completed my residency training at Harvard and the Mass General McLean Adult Psychiatry Training Program. I am a wife and also a mom to two daughters who are 18 and 14. I have a freshman in college and a freshman in high school. And so I would imagine, like many of you who are joining in on this series, in the thick of parenthood, caregiving. And this is a topic that I am very, very passionate about, both from a professional level as well as a personal level, when it comes to how we help to make sure that our young people have what they need to thrive, particularly in such times of uncertainty and challenge, and also that we as caregivers make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. So we're so excited that you are joining us for our new family initiative, Protect, Nurture, Thrive. We are mobilizing parents, caregivers, and families to protect their young people's mental health, nurture their well-being, and help them thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. We have a call to action for families to protect. We want to protect the mental health of our young people by recognizing warning signs, creating a safe and supportive environment, and strengthening their agency and resilience. We want to nurture them. We want to nurture the emotional well-being of our families by leading with honesty, modeling positive mental health habits, and helping our young people feel seen, valued, and secure. And then we want to thrive as a family by connecting to mental health resources together, honoring your cultural values, and creating positive change in your community. So for our session today, we have three primary objectives that we will be covering. And I hope that by the end of this session, you feel as though you are able to discuss how family dynamics such as involvement, communication, and emotional availability affect the mental health of young people. That you'll be able to describe strategies that foster secure attachment, responsive caregiving, and positive family functioning in daily life. And that you'll feel like you can explain the importance of caregiver well-being and provide practical tools to manage caregiver stress and promote mental wellness within your home. In terms of a roadmap, we're going to be talking about protective factors and what they are. We're going to talk about positive family functioning, what that means, what the components of that are, and then strategies and activities to enhance positive family functioning, and then closing remarks. So in terms of some community values, if you are not joining us live, then we still want this to feel as engaging as possible. There are a number of prompts and some exercises that we're going to do. And so I would encourage, even if you're not watching this live, that you take some time to be introspective and to do the activities and engage in that way. We really are building a community of growth at the Steve Fund and with our family initiative, where we value the experiences and the lessons that all in our community have learned and are learning. So we'll go ahead and get started here. And I want to start by, for those of you who were with us for our first session, we went over this quote by Dr. Carl Bell, and I want to go over it again now. Risk factors are not predictive factors because of protective factors. That's the renowned African-American psychiatrist Carl Bell. Risk factors are not predictive factors because of protective factors. We're probably all familiar with risk factors, right? For example, smoking is a risk factor for lung cancer. High blood pressure and an unhealthy diet can be often or major risk factors for heart disease. Well, we're talking about mental health and mental health outcomes. Risk factors are attributes, characteristics, or exposures that increase the risk of developing an adverse mental health outcome. So, for example, in childhood, if someone experiences neglect, if they experience discrimination due to their minority status, they're exposed to trauma, maybe experience the loss of a caregiver or family member, they have a caregiver who is suffering from or experiencing poor mental health, if they are experiencing or witnessing abuse within the family or in a community where there is community level violence, these are all risk factors that can increase the risk of having challenges with mental and emotional health and well-being. On the contrary, protective factors are attributes, characteristics, or exposures that reduce risk factors or independently act to increase positive outcomes. So some examples are coping skills, having individual healthy coping skills. And for those who joined us for our first session, we talked a lot about that. Individual agency is another protective factor. Having access to care and support services, secure attachment, and caregiver positive mental health. These are also examples, and we'll be talking about this more today in this session. It's important to recognize that protective factors exist in several domains, and the ones that we are focusing on in this series with the Steve Fund are the individual level, the relational level, and then communal. So our session, our previous session focused on individual level protective factors. Today, we're going to be talking about relational level. And our third session, which is coming up in a few weeks, will focus on communal. Just as a recap for those who were with us the last time and also for those who weren't able to join us, and if you weren't able to join us for the previous session, would encourage you to check out that video as well. Individual strengths that can serve as protective factors. This is not an exhaustive list, but individual strengths serve as protective factors by promoting the development of resilience. And we talked about this in detail in our last session. Self-esteem, coping skills, healthy coping skills, and those could be broken down into several categories: emotion-focused, problem-focused, meaning-focused, and social-focused coping skills, and self-efficacy, all serve to help to buffer young people and individuals against the risk factors that they may experience. And they operate in a cycle. So having positive self-esteem makes it more likely that you're going to use healthy coping skills. When you use healthy coping skills and you see that the outcome is positive, may not be easy, but you see the impact in a positive way on the outcomes, that builds a sense of self-efficacy, the sense that I can do something to positively impact my situation, my circumstances, my environment, how I feel. And that in turn strengthens your sense of self-esteem. So there's a cycle. Today, we're going to be talking about the relational level of coping or of protective factors, and specifically positive family functioning and the connection between positive family functioning and mental health, and intentional strategies to enhance positive family functioning and mental health. What we are going to be covering are several, and again, this is not exhaustive, but these are ones that we felt were probably perhaps most important to highlight. We're going to talk about the importance of building and maintaining open communication. So, practicing active listening, using I statements, and creating regular check in times. We're going to talk about strengthening emotional support and connection, being a responsive caregiver, spending quality time one on one without distractions, and showing affection often. We're going to talk about staying adaptive and flexible, listening and adjusting together, offering choices, not just solutions, modeling openness to change. And then finally, the importance of establishing structure and stability, setting and maintaining consistent routines, defining clear boundaries and consequences, explaining why these routines, boundaries, and consequences are important, and then how maintaining a safe and tidy home and including your children in this process are all an important part of establishing structure and stability. Before we go any further, I want to talk about this concept of responsive caregiving. Okay. Responsive caregiving is a fundamental part of positive family functioning because it is the active process that builds and maintains the core elements of a healthy family unit. So it's not just one of many components. It is the foundational or a foundational behavior that makes all the other components possible. Why is responsive caregiving so important and what does it do? Well, responsive caregiving builds secure attachment, and emotional security is the bedrock of positive family functioning. Responsive caregiving fosters open communication. When we notice and react to our children's cues, that builds a strong foundation for open communication. Responsive caregiving provides structure and stability. Consistent routines and clear boundaries, as we've said before, are vital for a stable family environment. And responsive caregiving helps to enhance problem solving and resilience, because when we are responsive caregivers, we're able to provide appropriate responses to our young people's distress, and we can model healthy coping skills that build resilience for them. So again, responsive caregiving, really the bedrock of positive family functioning. Now, I mentioned before in our previous session, we talked about the cycle that is created, this kind of positive cycle with individual protective factors, namely self-esteem, healthy coping skills, and self-efficacy. Likewise, we can think of this positive cycle being created with responsive caregiving, positive family functioning, and caregiver mental health. So I'm going to talk now about caregiver mental health and why it is so essential to this process. When a caregiver struggles with their mental health, it can negatively affect nearly every aspect of the family dynamic. It impacts communication, emotional support, and stability. So I'll say that again, that when a caregiver struggles with their mental health, it can negatively affect nearly every aspect of the family dynamic because the caregiver's ability to communicate in healthy ways, to provide emotional support, to have the bandwidth, is impacted, and then that impacts the stability of the overall home. So why is self-care important for caregivers? Number one, I will say it's because of this quote by Dorothy Law Nolte: children learn what they live. And the second reason, you as a parent or caregiver are deserving of rest, peace, and enjoyment. So I'm going to just reiterate that because I think it's so important. And as a parent myself, I truly get it. How we can find our own self-care being kind of put by the wayside. And oftentimes we feel that we're doing this in service of our families. But again, to reiterate the importance of our own self-care and mental health when it comes to being able to be um, responsive caregivers, and how responsive caregiving is the foundation for positive family functioning, right? But we can't have positive and or mental health and well-being as caregivers without paying attention to our self-care. All right. So, sometimes we can find ourselves saying, gosh, there's just, I'd like to do more to take care of myself, but I'm so busy taking care of my family and all the other responsibilities that I have that I just don't have time. Well, that's where this reason number one comes in, why self care is important to caregivers. Children learn what they live. I know I certainly am raising my girls to be, have a strong sense of self and the importance of taking care of themselves, right? I want them when they are adults to value and prioritize taking care of themselves. Well, children learn what they live. So if they don't see that modeled in our household, if I'm not modeling that for them, if my husband's not modeling that, then that impacts them. And then the second reason, that independent of our families and our responsibilities, we are also deserving of rest, peace, and enjoyment. And sometimes that can there can be a lot of parent guilt or caregiver guilt when it comes to taking out time for yourself. So yes, I have lingered on this point, but I think that it is so important, and I just want you to be kind of thinking about that as we go along, and think about how that relates to you. Now, I, alluded to the fact that it's hard, right, to prioritize self care, especially in this day and time. There's so many barriers and external pressures, and so I wanted to name what some of those are. Nonstop schedules, right? It feels like one day just flows into the next, and there are always more things being added to our plates, and so that makes it hard to prioritize self care. And as I'm going through this list, it would be, I would love for you can pause or just maybe pull out a piece of paper or your phone and just maybe identify the top two or three things on this list that you think serve as barriers or external pressures for you when it comes to prioritizing your own self care. So, nonstop schedules, doing all the things, the expectations and norms around having our children engaged in extracurricular activities, camps, enrichment programs, all aimed at making them as competitive as possible for college. For many parents, that is a pressure. For many of us, there are certain cultural and community expectations. This is just what we do. We show up for this. We have this in our schedule. We make time for these things. We prioritize these things. This is just what we do. Being continually connected via social media, I think that also feeds into kind of the nonstop schedules and then pressures to keep up, particularly when we are looking at what others are doing via social media or elsewhere. That can create this sense that, well, everybody else is going. I should be too, and I need to keep up. Feeling compelled to demonstrate certain markers of success. What activities do your children participate in? Do they play tennis? Do they play the piano? Are they in a debate club? Are they doing, what activities are they participating in? And depending on the community that you come from, there might be certain associations with success, or you're having your kids on a path or track for success based on those things. We really have now kind of normalized just always being on and on the go. I hear a lot of times from patients that, having supervisors or colleagues with the expectation that, at 10 o'clock, you're checking your email and responding. So always being on and on the go. FOMO, fear of missing out by not taking on every opportunity that presents itself can also be a pressure. And then finally, financial constraints can be a huge pressure to be able to create the time and the space to take time for yourself, to have childcare, to not have to work as many hours. All of those can be barriers and external pressures. Another aspect of this, when it comes to the barriers that I'd like you to think about, is asking yourself, what was modeled for me? Because many of us carry generational and historical trauma, the weight of pain and survival that's been passed down from our ancestors, our grandparents, and our parents, and now onto us. And in many of our families, we've been taught to manage painful emotions with unhealthy coping skills, such as misuse of substances, food, or negative self-talk. Many of us have internalized this superhuman complex, and there are various ways. Sometimes it's called the strong Black woman, um, uh, stereotype, or superwoman, or just we'll say superhuman complex. And that can consist of learned behaviors of overextending ourselves, having a tendency toward perfectionism and overachieving, being the strong friend, the strong family member. We take on too many responsibilities at once. We are the caretakers for everyone. It can involve a lot of masking, saying, I'm okay when you're not okay, feeling the pressure of success and achievement and all, so that you can feel as though or present the image that you are keeping it all together, right? So I want you to take just a moment and you can pause the video here, or just take a moment to think about what are some life hacks that you implement to take care of your mental health when you are limited in terms of time and resources, right? So we'll just take a moment here. What are some life hacks that you implement to take care of your mental health when you're limited for time, resources, etc.? I can share with you, as you may be thinking about this, that one of the hacks that I've come up with is, because my kids have been involved in lots of extracurricular activities at their various stages and various types of activities, to incorporate, for example, my youngest daughter runs track. And so exercising, making time to exercise is one of those things that I really want to do, but find it very challenging to do on a consistent basis. When she is, as it's track season and she's going to the track and we have to be there by 6 o'clock in the evening, I've started putting my tennis shoes and exercise clothes in the car, so that while she is doing her track practice, I can walk around the track and get some exercise in, because carving out a different time to go to the gym and things like that often doesn't work for me. So again, take a moment, think about some life hacks that you're already implementing to take care of your mental health, your physical health, when you're limited for time and resources. And I would encourage you to reflect on this and share. Also, what are some hacks and strategies that you use to support the mental health and well-being of your young people, right? I can say for myself, when it comes to um, uh, supporting my children's mental health and well-being, one thing that I like to do is to use our time in the car when we're either on a trip or just going to and from school, to do a check-in and to kind of see how they're feeling, how they're processing things. So think about those hacks, right? Um, let's talk now about realistic and sustainable self-care as a caregiver, because as I've already acknowledged, we've already talked about the fact that it can be really, really hard, although we know it's important, really challenging to have sustainable self-care practices as caregivers. So how can we be more realistic in this process? First, though, I want to just share this brief video with you and see if anyone can relate. I know I can.
I'm just feeling really down these days, and I don't know why. Have you exercised today? No. Did you go outside? No. Did you talk to anyone? No. Did you eat well? No. Did you limit your scrolling time? No. Did you make any plans? No. Did you drink enough water? No. Did you get enough sleep? No. Wait, yeah.
So I don't know how many of you all can relate to that. I certainly can. There you have those moments when you're like, gosh, why am I feeling this way? Is something wrong? Am I sick? And then you start to do your own little mental health checklist and realize there's so many of these um, small but very important aspects of self-care that we can very easily get behind in or overlook when we are really busy. So sustainable and realistic self-care. I would say the first and most important is to set intentions, not goals. I really like yoga. For those of you who have participated in yoga, whether it's going to a class in person or pulling up a YouTube video, and doing yoga, I think the practice is really beneficial in a lot of ways. And every yoga instructor that I have worked with before will say at the beginning of class, they'll ask you to set an intention for your practice for that day, for that yoga class. And I think that the word intention is a good one. It because as opposed to goals, right? Um, an intention is something that you want to do, that you are kind of setting your sights on. But there's a level of self compassion and flexibility when it comes to an intention as opposed to a goal. So if I set as a goal, I want to take better care of my nutrition by drinking 8 glasses of water a day. If I don't drink 8 glasses of water, then I feel like I didn't meet my goal. And that, at least for me, kind of conveys some, negative self-talk. I didn't meet the goal. And however, if I set the intention, um, it just has a slightly different feel. So I'm setting the intention to take better care of myself by drinking 8 glasses of water a day or just drinking more water a day. If I didn't get to do it today, that's okay. I will continue to set that as my intention and to work on it. Again, these intentions are important because it helps you to be realistic and compassionate in your expectations of yourself, right? Another thing that I think is important is, though, to prioritize sleep, healthy eating, and exercise without apology. You may not be able to get 8 hours of sleep every night. You may have to, pick up fast food and not have the greatest, diet on certain days, and you may not be able to get exercise in every day. However, setting your intention that you want to prioritize those things and that you're not going to apologize to anyone for making those things a priority, I think is important. Protect your peace. These days more than ever, I think it is really important. We want to be aware of what's going on. Very important to be aware of what is going on in the country and in the world. And you also have to recognize that we all probably have that a threshold at which the content we are taking in may be overwhelming. Pay attention to the way your body feels when you are watching certain things or seeing certain news content. Unfollow harmful content, release negative spaces or people, align your life with your values. And I really recommend this song called Energy Budget. It's really more of a mantra by an artist named Tony Jones. You can look her up on YouTube or in other places where you get your music. I think that song really says a lot. Engage in spiritual practices such as prayer and meditation on a regular basis. Practice mindfulness and breathing to stay in the present moment. Practice positive self talk and daily affirmations and engage in counseling or therapy. Right? So these are all strategies that you can use to care for yourself. You may not be able to tick off every box every week. That's okay. But having these things in mind and again, setting your intentions is important. So, with that in mind, what intention would you like to set for yourself this week? What intention would you like to set for yourself this week? And you can fill in the blank here with this statement. So I am setting the intention to fill in the blank in order to prioritize caring for my mental, physical, and emotional well-being. I'll say that this is actually something I started last week. I am setting the intention to go for a walk um, every day that I can and setting 5 o'clock as my walk time in order to prioritize caring for my mental, physical, and emotional well being. All right. So I want us to now, as we get ready to talk more about positive family functioning and strategies, to take a moment to recognize your unique family strengths. All right. Um, those can be, this is not an exhaustive list, as I've said on some of our other slides, but we have a number of family strengths listed here. And it's really important to think about those that particularly resonate with you and with your family, right? So, for example, we are a family for whom commitment to one another is one of our greatest strengths, right? We're always there for each other no matter what. Or my family is a family where accepting each other as we are, and loving one another unconditionally is important. Family that has a lot of empathy, or we set healthy boundaries. We value our spirituality and faith, and it is the guiding principle that that holds us all together. We're a family that likes to be physically active together. We value that and we prioritize it. So, which traits do you see in your family? And if there are some that I have not listed here, please, write those down or make a note of those for you or yourself. Also, while you're making a note, maybe there's some family strengths that you don't necessarily feel are as active in your family, but you would like to see them as strengths. I would make a note of that too, if there's certain things you would like your family to grow into. All right, so family strengths, really important. Now, let's talk about some of the strategies that we identified at the very beginning for positive family functioning. We talked about caregiver mental health being essential in order to be a responsive caregiver, responsive caregiving as a bedrock for positive family functioning, right? And so now we want to talk about some strategies that we can use as caregivers and parents to help really promote and facilitate that positive family functioning. So one of those is building and maintaining open communication. I want to pause for a moment here for you to just reflect. What is your communication style? How is your style similar to or different from your child's communication style? And what are some areas where you can improve your communication with your young people? Right? What's your communication style? And how's your style similar to or different from your child's? As you're reflecting on that, I can share that I am I'm a verbal processor. I like to talk. That's one of the main reasons I was attracted to the field of psychiatry, psychology, therapy. I love to talk. And so I communicate by talking. I think too, but I feel like I actually think best when I am able to engage in dialogue and kind of work out my ideas. One of my daughters is very similar. In fact, she talks even more than I do, which something that we laugh about a lot in our family. My other daughter is much more similar to my husband, who's an internal processor. They really reflect and think internally, work things out before before they're ready to kind of talk and delve into it. So that's important for me to know, because if there's something important that I want to talk to my oldest daughter, who is also a verbal processor, I can bring that to her, and we can usually kind of start talking about it right away. We may need to pause. There may be some times where she needs to think about it, and we come back. For my younger daughter, if I bring something to her that she's not prepared to really come up with a solution for, or she needs to think about, I have to recognize that she may not be able to engage in that lengthy conversation with me right away. And so learning how I have had to learn how to say, like, hey, I wanted to talk about this. Do you feel like we can talk about it right now, or do you want to think about it and have me come back? Right. So think about in your own communication style and your own family, what those styles are, and some areas where you can improve your communication with your young people. Let's talk about active and reflective listening. So active listening involves being fully present, right? It's paying attention to the nonverbal cues that another person is communicating. It involves adjusting your body language to enhance rapport. So if you're sitting with someone and they're leaning forward, you might lean forward to enhance rapport and to show that you're with them. It's using brief empathic statements to indicate an understanding of what's being said, and then asking open-ended questions to encourage more dialogue. Now, reflective listening goes a step beyond active listening, and it involves actually restating the person's message back to them in your own words to confirm your understanding and to show empathy. So, what I'm saying, what I'm hearing you say is that you're feeling blank because blank. Can you say more about that? So, what I'm hearing you say is that you're feeling overwhelmed and anxious because you have a lot of tests and assignments due this week and you're not sure how you're going to get it all done. Can you say more about that? All right. So, active listening, reflective listening. It's important when we are communicating that we use I messages or I statements. So we want to avoid statements that start with you because that pretty much immediately puts the other person on the defensive. And this is whether we're talking with our young people, our spouses, our partners, coworkers, friends, other family members, right? So we want to avoid things like you don't listen, you don't understand, you don't care, you aren't there for me, right? Instead, we want to use lead with the word I. Um, and this is an outline for how you can couch these statements. So I feel, and then say what the emotion is that you feel when you describe the behavior because, and then you explain the impact. Um, I feel like I need more support. Can you help me? Or for a young person might say something like, I feel hurt when you criticize my college choice because it makes me feel like you don't believe I'm capable of making good decisions for myself. Um, I'm feeling unheard. Can we talk? I'm feeling anxious about making this transition and I want to be able to talk to you about it because if I can't talk to you about it, it makes me feel like I'm alone in handling this myself. So these are things we want to think about leading with I statements and avoiding the you statements. Coming back to being a responsive caregiver, let's just take a moment and reflect here. I'd like you to think about a time when you could tell that something was concerning your child. How did you know? What did you do? What was their response? And what was the outcome? And if you're, again, joining us or watching this at a later time, you may want to pause the video here and take a moment to reflect on that. So being a responsive caregiver, maybe think of some examples and or a specific example for you and for your young person. Hopefully you are able to readily think of some ideas or of an example. But I will say that a few things to keep in mind are recognizing shifts in our children's behavior or attitude. Um, you know, my oldest, who is a talker, if she gets really quiet, that can let me know that okay, there's a shift there. Something has changed, and that can be a signal that I need to follow up. As her parent, as her caregiver. Um, Thinking when it comes to thinking about what you do, reflecting on those communication styles, thinking about the response and the outcome. So take a moment again, like I said, and reflect on this. And then as you go forward from here, I would encourage you to have these ideas, these thoughts in your mind and think about your caregiving style and in what ways you are being a responsive caregiver. All right, we talked about the importance of spending quality time when it comes to promoting positive family functioning, right? Spending quality time together really helps to enhance our connection emotionally and our communication. So take a moment here, and I'd love for you to list 1 to 3 one-on-one activities that you and your young person can do in the next week or month to spend quality time together. All right. If you come up with more than 3, that's awesome. But just take a quick moment and think about that. I can share that for my oldest daughter. I had the opportunity last weekend to go and was in town where she goes to college, and we went out to dinner together, and that was just nice, just the two of us one on one. And with my younger daughter, she's really into crafting, and she's become an excellent with crochet and knitting. And so we went to Michael's and bought yarn, and she was excited to work on a new project. So just think about what some of those things are that you have done recently or can do with your young person in the next week or month to spend some quality time together. Love languages. For those who may not have heard of this term before, I would really encourage you to look it up. There's a book called The Five Love Languages. That this concept is one that I think is really, really relevant. It impacts not only our relationships with our partners or spouses, but also our friends, our children, our young people, our family members. The basic idea is that all of us have a certain way in which we express and receive love. So, for example, for some of us, our primary love language is words of affirmation. We express love by telling our loved ones, I love you, I appreciate you, I value you, I thank you for what you've done. And we feel most loved when we receive words of affirmation. So being told, I love you, I appreciate you, that we feel most loved when we are receiving words of affirmation. For others, their primary love language is quality time, spending quality time together. And for others, it may be gifts that they demonstrate their love by giving gifts and feel most loved when receiving gifts, right? And there's no right or wrong love language. Everyone is unique, and everyone probably has some degree of each of these love languages to to a different degree. One other one to be aware of is acts of service. Some of us express our love, maybe not so much by telling our loved ones verbally that to the extent that someone who has words of affirmation as their primary love language, but maybe they demonstrate their love largely by doing things for their loved ones. Putting gas in the car, cleaning up the kitchen, or cooking a meal, or things like that. So acts of service. So with all of that said, think about how you express and receive love. And then what do you think your family members' love languages are? How do they express and receive love? And how do you meet each other's love language needs? I can say that for myself, I resonate with all of the love languages, but I know that my primary love language is words of affirmation. I tell my family I love them um, constantly, right? And I feel I definitely appreciate and feel loved when I receive words of affirmation in return, right? Um, if someone has words of affirmation as their primary love language, and someone else has acts of service as their primary love language, you can both be expressing love, but maybe not recognizing it because it's not in that primary love language. So thinking about how you meet each other's love language needs, and recognizing that there can sometimes be misunderstandings because you're sort of cross, you're not understanding one another, but the love is very much there. I think love languages also can be a great kind of conversation to bring up with your family, and an exercise to do as a way of understanding one another better. All right, establishing structure and stability. So, this is one of the final points that we wanted to make. Think about what are some of the routines that your family consistently maintains, because structure and stability is really important, especially for young people when they are growing up, but also for family in general, right? And every family probably has certain routines that they maintain and others that may be harder to maintain. But just as an example, does your family say, do you have a consistent dinner time that you sit down every night and eat dinner together? Or, no matter what, you have a pretty consistent bedtime routine, right? Are there routines that you have difficulty maintaining? take some time to think about that and then think about maybe some strategies that can help you to be more consistent with those and prioritizing the ones that are the most important. Um, I would say avoid the because I said so. Um, our young people are really bright and they want to know, well, why do we have to do these things? And it actually helps to facilitate your communication and facilitate their uh, growth emotionally and mentally when we can explain why certain routines, boundaries, and consequences are important. All right. So as we wrap up here, I want to, just make the point that there may come times when you are doing the best that you can, but we can't do it alone, right? And you don't have to do it alone. Help is available. If you feel as though you or your family or a young person is struggling and needs some help, please recognize that help is available. And we have listed here some of the major resources through school, counseling resources, reaching out to a primary care doctor, scheduling with a therapist directly, calling your insurance company for a list of mental health providers, going to a local mental health center. I share pretty much every time I'm speaking with folks, I am a board certified psychiatrist and therapist, and I have a therapist. In fact, I had an appointment yesterday, and it was so helpful. I have made therapy for myself just in one of my self care routines that I have just set the intention to make sure I am keeping up with. We also wanted to make sure that you're aware of crisis resources. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And we also have a crisis text line through the Steve Fund. If you text Steve to 741-741, it's for students and adults. We have trained counselors who receive the messages that come through on that text line, and they are trained specifically to help under resourced, marginalized young people, people of color, people who may have be from the LGBTQ community. So, want to make sure that you are aware of that and that resource. I also think it's important to note that there are free and low cost therapy resources available as well. And in particularly in our current atmosphere, we know that financially, health insurance, job loss, there are a lot of things going on that are impacting our families. But please be aware that there are many free and low cost therapy resources available as well. And we have listed those here, including Open Path Collective, NAMI, Mental Health America. So please don't let a fear of cost or lack of insurance stop you from reaching out for help if you need it. Finally, we have a number of resources through our Steve Fund Family Corner. We have a monthly newsletter that we put out with relevant articles, guides, and upcoming events. We have our digital toolkits on our Family Corner site. We have resources to support you and your family in caring for your own mental health and the mental health of your young people. The Steve Fund also has the My Digital Sanctuary resource, which is a hub of resources with videos, journals, articles, guides, and more just for our young people. Again, I've shared the crisis text line. You can follow us on social media at the Steve Fund. You can also email us at info@stevefund.org. You've been such a great, it's been great to connect with all of you. I thank you for participating in this session today. I thank you for your time. And I wanted to make you aware of our upcoming Protective Factors webinar, the third of this series, which will be on October 22nd from 7:30 to 8:30 Eastern Time. And we will be focusing on those communal protective factors. So it's called Strong Roots, Strong Minds, Strengthening Cultural and Community Connections. And you can scan the QR code here or register on our Family Corner site. All right. And so with that, I thank you again. We have a QR code here that we would really appreciate feedback. We take your feedback and input very seriously. It helps us to continue to make sure that the content that we are sharing is relevant, is helpful, is timely. So please take a moment. It'll take you less than 5 minutes to complete it. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing all of you soon and hopefully joining in with our upcoming webinar. All the best. Bye.